Hello and welcome to a new episode of B2B e-commerce integrated. My name is Arno, Chief Product Officer of Sana Commerce, and in this podcast I'm interviewing the most important people in B2B e-commerce, our IT folks. So before we jump into this interview, if you have enjoyed listening to previous episodes, please leave a review and rating so you will help your peers to find the content better and easier. Today I have with me Mariette Doosje, independent consultant specialized in B2B e-commerce, ERP, and supply chain optimization. So welcome, Mariette.
Thank you. Hi.
Mariette, can you please explain to our listeners more about your background?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I started around the millennium as a web designer to make internet sites for companies. And during the years, I had several roles for different companies, from designer to project leader to consultant. And in the past 2 years, I started my own business in e-commerce.
Wow. Yeah, so already from the beginning, so yeah, the millennium, that was a long time ago. From
Yeah.
the beginning, you were interested in IT, actually first on the design side and later on more to consultancy. So yeah, we know each other, I think, from the past, from when you were working for GAC, yeah, right? One of the,
Yes.
let's say, biggest um, um, Microsoft Business Central or Microsoft NAV back in the days partners in the Benelux area. I think we did many e-commerce or B2B e-commerce projects doing so together.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
For 15
yeah,
years, I think, almost.
exactly. And now you started indeed your own business. So
Yeah.
um, your experience, let's say with B2B and Sana, I explained already a little bit with GAC, but in general, what kind of projects did you do? What kind of experience did you had back in the days?
Yeah, a very great variety of projects from B2B, B2C, B2X shops. Yeah, for the production companies, for wholesale companies, fashion industry. So a great range of projects, different kind of products, etc. So yeah, quite. Big variety.
Big variety. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things for the listeners, I think GSC or now I think that's been taken over by or merged with Broad Horizon. So now it's one
It's
of the
still GAC
yeah, the
named.
name is
Yeah,
still
yeah,
GAC indeed,
yeah,
but it's one of the biggest company, but also early adopters. I think they were, let's say, actively pushing B2B e-commerce to their customers as a product in their portfolio in comparison with others, right? So they
yeah.
were,
That's
I
right.
would say, really front runners, and yeah, we
Yeah,
have done many projects together,
yeah,
and indeed, what you mentioned, B2B, B2C. So you were doing, you have seen both, but most of the B2B stuff, I think, was back in the days with Sana, but now you have, as an independent consultant, you have experience with other platforms as well. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
yeah. I also implement shops in Shopify or make interfaces with other shops, WooCommerce, or and that's almost always B2C side. B2B is,
Hmm.
yeah, for me, is almost always a Sana Commerce platform.
Yeah, so and that's I think a very interesting topic, right? Because everybody is saying or claiming, say, yeah, all every let's say vendor has integrations, right? But there is, let's say, how we see the world. There's a difference between um, synchronization or integration or interfaces, and what we call um, um, ERP integration, or let's say
Yeah.
the integrations deeply how we with Sana are yeah, building that or supplying that to our customers. So, what is, in your opinion, the difference? Or let's talk a little bit about explaining the differences or where the differences are.
Yeah, there's sometimes a misunderstanding what is an interface and what is an integration.
Mm-hmm.
That's because it's very technic and complex part that it is difficult to describe. But if you can imagine that. especially for B2B companies. They have large orders. They have a great variety of products, a lot of customers, a lot of different customers, and also customer
Hmm.
specific prices, discounts, VAT rules, everything that comes with a real business to business company, and that makes it a flat interface, not enough for uh,
Hmm.
for a B2B
Yeah,
company.
it's maybe if I listen carefully to you, and it's the complexity and actually the difference between B2B and B2C, right? We are focusing on B2B, and with, let's say, most interfaces that are being supplied out of the box are mostly focused on B2C, like, and but maybe first talk a little bit to, let's say, explore this problem, or to get more information about, okay, what's now exactly the difference, is the difference between B2B and B2C, because you have mentioned already a couple of things. I hear you saying, hey, let's say um, with B2C, it's most of the time many customers just and many or a couple of products, depends if you are a brand or a retailer. Um, but most of the time you're selling most of the time one or twice, or yeah, if you build a relationship with a customer and hey, they are ordering a couple of times per year, I think you're doing a great
Yeah,
job. And with B2B, it's a different story, right? You have many different or let's say the orders are bigger in terms of the amount of items somebody is purchasing,
yeah,
right? It's maybe 10 hundreds, I think you have even seen thousands of lines, right, in your
yeah,
career
that's right. And it's also that is sometimes the problem or underestimation
already. Yeah.
already because B2B shop needs for the performance and for calculations of
Hmm.
prices need some larger capacity than a B2C
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah,
For
it's in a different area indeed. Yeah, so
yeah,
so indeed, where maybe for B2C it's more about you need capacity or compute power optimizations in handling a lot of traffic,
yeah,
and that needs to convert to maybe to orders. Yeah, hopefully
yeah,
that's the business, of course, the goal. And with B2B, it's actually, yeah, probably much less traffic. Maybe some of B2B businesses I know, they have, let's say, a couple of users per day,
yeah,
or
yeah.
let's say a couple, or
But
maybe they
it's
have 1,000,
thousands of euros that goes along with it. Oh,
thousands or
yeah,
millions of euros
yeah,
indeed, because one order can be already, or dollars, it can already be, 20, 30,000 euros or dollars per time, right? So
exactly. Yeah,
that's already a big difference.
yeah,
So, and I think we are getting here somewhere, is that indeed with the difference in B2B versus B2C, there is also in the technology needs already a difference. And then you can never say, yeah, we have integration, because most of the time they mean, or they think they understand it, and it's about, yeah, integration, what's mostly optimized for consumer scenarios.
yeah. And
um
you see that.
but let's dive.
Yeah.
No, sorry,
Yeah,
yes, what were you
you
saying?
see it back in an example of rounding, price rounding.
Mm-hmm.
If you have
Complexities in that area.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a rounding issue in your web shop compared to your ERP, then if you have a B2C order, it's a small amount. So
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe 1 cent you miss out there. But if you have an
Yeah,
order with a large amount, then yeah, it can be 10, maybe 100 euros per order that you miss out because
what you're
of
missing. Yeah.
the rounding precision.
Yeah, so rounding. So maybe for the listeners that do not really follow it, it's a technical term,
Yeah,
but rounding precision, or let's say issues in rounding, it's happening a lot, I think, in computer science, or at least in systems that you want to integrate. So it's about uh, um, if you're calculating or multiplying stuff, etc., you get at some point in time a rounding issues, and you need to deal with that. So you can actually, if you do the calculation in system one, for example, in an e-commerce system, and you're doing the same calculation in an ERP system, and they are tweaked or configured or developed in a different way, how to handle these, let's say, roundings of numbers, you can get a difference. And what that means is that if, for example, the store is for example, rounding down instead it needs to be up or other way around. Yeah, it can have sense of difference. And for a consumer order, let's say, so okay, you miss a cent per order, maybe not a big deal. But if you're ordering 10,000s or 100,000s of a certain item, and then indeed it can lead up to quite some differences. And I think yeah, you mentioned this because you have seen this.
A couple of times, yeah.
So that's actually complexity, and nobody's talking about that. But
Yeah.
that is interesting that you mentioned. So let's talk a little bit more about complexity in B2B e-commerce, and because also, for example, pricing. I think that's the simplest sample that you can give. But if you have, for example, you have 50,000 items that you're selling for 5,000 customers, you end up already with 250 million pricing rules that if every customer has a single price. But do not even mention if you have, for example, certain combinations for a customer or different, how to say that, campaigns or
Yeah.
so it can
The,
lead up to hundreds of millions of lines that you need to synchronize between
yep.
systems.
A discount over
Yeah.
discount, all that kind of.
And that is difficult, I think, to or at least what we see, and it's difficult to keep a line between these systems. And that's why with Sana we do that in a different way.
Yeah.
We make sure that we are doing, not transferring all that information and logic. We are calculating that in the ERP where it's already there,
Yeah.
right? It saves a lot of time and trouble. We have mentioned that many times, but it's interesting that we are going in a bit more detail. Any other things, or let's say samples that you have um, in complexities of B2B companies that are going online, or shall we move on to another topic, which is more talking about the projects, or how to you know deal with this and how you can avoid all this kind of stuff.
Um, yeah, well, your first question is about yeah, the challenging when you start a new project and you see more often that an
Mm-hmm.
interface is forgotten a little bit.
Yeah.
People
Mm-hmm.
think, oh yeah, well, everything will integrate automatically, but at the end of the project, it seems like, oh, they find out that there are some things that don't work that way, or that they had thought before. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in that case,
So they do not have. So you're actually mentioning when you're starting B2B e-commerce or an e-commerce, let's say project, they forget about this whole, let's say, piece of the pudding or this whole thing of the project. Just say, okay, yeah, we do not estimate it, we do not prepare for it, etc. They just say, no, the web store needs to look nice, it needs to have product, it needs to have beautiful branding, it needs to go online fast. But they forget about what will actually happen when you place an order,
yeah.
or if you want to calculate an order, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I had once a customer called me and he said, "Oh, hey, Mariette, we went online with our web shop and yeah, we noticed that orders aren't in our ERP system. Can you take a look what is happening?" I say, "Oh, of course." And then yeah, I found out that there was no interface, so yeah, the orders never could come in the ERP in the first place.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's quite yeah, uh,
that's quite a story.
yeah,
Yeah, so they went online. They were actually gathering money. They're actually selling stuff, but they thought, okay, yeah, that will just happen by magic. Let's say, so if you, and then we can just ship it, or
yeah.
we can handle it
That's a,
just by magic. So they,
yeah,
yeah,
the
no, of course,
party
and
that the web shop implemented told, yeah, it's just standard interface is there.
standard
So
functionality.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't that standard as they thought it would be. So
As they
yeah,
thought, yeah. No, it's often missed, yeah, indeed. And of course, it depends of the maturity of the
yeah,
company. We are depends if you're first time B2B e-commerce or maybe second or third
yeah,
generation. Then I think you have seen the different aspects of it. But as you mentioned, you're still seeing quite some projects that actually that you are being asked to help, and that they never thought about that this should be part of your
yeah,
project.
yeah.
and then you guide them. Yes, I think that is great, and actually then you're helping these companies, which is good. And actually, we surveyed this in one of the investigations we did lately. We surveyed over 1,000 IT um, managers or directors, and what they mentioned is that with implementing new solutions, 37% of their budget is actually being spent on integration. I think these are the ones that we have interviewed. They know this, or they have a little bit, and they have already second or third generation. So can you imagine even the ones that do not um, know about this or forgot about it or do it later in the stage? So I think then even this number will rise, and that was actually surprising to me that so much money is being spent on something which is being done over and
Yeah.
over again, and which can be, at least in the niche we are supporting, Microsoft and SAP, um, can be a Kickstarter, because we have done this work for you over the past 10 years, did a lot of R&D, making sure that this just work. And yeah, you can save 37% of your budget, or most of this part is being taken care with the products we are supplying,
Yeah.
right? So, um, but even if you're not choosing Sana, then it's still a great tip that if you start a new project, at least like you're planning for design, if I understood you correctly, like you're planning for design, like you're planning for maybe functionality,
Yeah.
and other goals you want to achieve, you also need to think about the integration and the back end, right?
Exactly. And also check, is it a standard interface, real standard, and or is it a custom
Mm-hmm.
interface that has to be built? Because custom interfaces can be a headache for IT managers. Because if you have a
Mm-hmm.
custom interface, then your Business Central environment is upgrading every time Microsoft pushes an upgrade through. And then every time you have to check, is the interface okay? Is there no problem? But also, if there is a problem, you have multiple parties to check. Hey, we see the interface doesn't work. Can you check? And then they say, oh, no, it's not our web shop. Then you come to the ERP party and they say, oh, no, it's not in the ERP.
Mm-hmm.
It must be the interface. And then, yeah, you are a lot of
Yeah.
time away. And it is just a headache because it's your front end, your orders. If they don't come through, then you miss out your uh,
Yeah, customers are
yeah,
waiting for the
exactly.
products, right?
So
So,
yeah,
and yeah, yeah, and for B2B, I think that's crucial, because that will damage the relationship and
yeah,
so on and so on. And but yeah, but let's take a pause and let's say digest this a bit, because I think it's very interesting what you mentioned. So custom interfaces, that I think everything has APIs on both
exactly.
sides, but still if you build these custom interfaces, yes, they they need to work according to these contracts, so that they keep this more or less stable, at least in certain releases. But still, practically, when you're working with these projects, if changes are made on one side or on another side, they are not endlessly working, right? It's technology, it's constantly evolving, especially now in the era of SaaS, that software as a service, continuously pushing updates. We are doing that, but Microsoft and SAP also in their cloud ERPs, their new versions are doing that. It's a constant, let's say, evolution of these systems, and yeah, you need to make sure that these things are keep working, right? And that's, I think, also one part that IT managers or people involved in B2B e-commerce are forgetting about, and that it's also taking a lot of maintenance time or monitoring, and is actually also something which why we make the product like we are
Yeah,
doing it, right? So I think that's a very nice example. And yeah, then you have, I think, standard interface is something you customly developed, um, and maybe then elaborate a little bit more on what we are having with Sana, because I think, and that's also, and maybe still a little bit going back to the discussion, okay, what is an interface, what is an integration, and what is ERP, integrated e-commerce, like we are doing with Sana. Um, I believe there are two things important here. So it's just the technical integration, so making sure the APIs are there and that you have something. But we also call something which we call functional integration. And with functional integration, we mean it actually functionally works as well with the changing environment, with the changing requirements, that every customer has different requirements, obviously. And what we have done with all this experience from the past year, we have built flexibility on both sides, um, and a lot of other things. But let's start with flexibility. So, for example, okay, field mapping, what fields to use for what, right? Sometimes people are using the second address field for
Yeah,
something else
yeah,
than the second address line, right? Or these practical things are happening a lot. Or it's about, let's say, performance, because what you mentioned, order volumes can be big. So that's also what we have, put a lot of R&D in making sure that we can handle or actually configure how the ERP and how e-commerce should behave based on the customer's scenario. Is it large order volume with a lot of lines, or is it, a lot of frequent orders, small amount? You need to, the system should behave differently, and the integration should behave differently. So all these details, these nuances, I think that is what differs us from, let's say, mainstream e-commerce that is just supplying beautiful interfaces, beautiful integration, but mostly optimized for consumer scenarios, high frequency, small amount, and a small
exactly.
complexity.
Yeah, and you miss out
And
the customer specific prices because a calculation what you do in
exactly,
the ERP with
yeah.
price, customer specific with discounts,
And it's not only me saying that,
capacity
right?
problem.
It's Gartner, Forrester as
Yeah,
well, right? I think, and also other podcasts. Um, I actually, it's
yeah,
maybe the holy trinity of, let's say, B2B e-commerce: price, stock, and transaction. That needs to be real time in some way, or that needs to be at least coming from a system of record, or a system that can handle that complexity. Because at least these three things, because uh, moving it over the data or keeping it in sync between systems is just a very hard thing to do.
yeah. You get errors. You have more maintenance
Hmm.
around such an interface. It can be a choice, but you have just you can have so many maintenance about around one interface if it doesn't work properly. So
Yeah, so you have
yeah,
seen
that
IT managers struggle a lot, because that's, I think, what's happening, right? The store is not
yeah,
functioning, or not functioning well. It's slow, or it is having, differences in terms of pricing.
not the right
They
data.
are calling
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and then yeah, go and check where it goes wrong. I mean, and it can be everywhere,
Hmm.
because with an interface you have both sides. You have API on the webshop side, but you have also the side of the ERP.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's more complex, and you have also a PIM solution or other solution, and it gets complexer and complexer and complexer, and then after all, nobody knows where, if something goes wrong, then where to search
yeah.
for the problem.
That's also often difficult, right? Monitoring is lacking, or troubleshooting the tools
Yeah.
that you have around these topics is also, yeah, maybe that's an interesting, we are not going in that detail, maybe that's interesting for another topic.
For another
but but
time.
that but that's interesting as well, right? So if something is going wrong,
Yeah.
how to figure out where the solution is. Yeah, you actually gave me an idea on another topic for another podcast
Ah,
later
okay,
on, so thank you
nice.
for that. So the other part that I wanted to talk about is about B2B functionality, because it's not only about integration. We are focusing on B2B e-commerce, and I think you have a lot of experience in yeah, bringing B2B e-commerce stores online. I think maybe
Yeah.
tens or maybe even 100 stores you have seen over the years,
Yeah.
different companies, different sizes.
It's more hundred
Yeah,
stores
hundreds of stores. Yeah,
over the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So if you talk about functionality, and also in comparison maybe with other platforms or other solutions, so at least which, let's say, unique B2B features should a solution have? Let's say, so what is really necessary to run B2B e-commerce in a good way?
Yeah, of course, your order history,
Mm-hmm.
but also what comes along is reorder
Yeah.
history. So easily can reorder products without doing too much effort, spending too much effort in it.
Okay. And then you mention actually it's about order history or transaction history, and not only the orders that have been placed online, but I think from a holistic view also from other channels,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because nothing is so frustrating that you say, "Hey, I want to reorder something," and oh yeah, last week I was in the store, I was or at the distribution center, I ordered this, or I got this shipped, and I want to reorder it, but it's not in my e-commerce platform or it's not in my account because I'm only seeing the online orders, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And what also comes along is, yeah, it are large orders.
Yeah,
They order multiple times per week.
yeah,
And then after a while, they say, oh, I don't know when I ordered something. So I am going to take a look in the web shop what is open
yeah.
and what I have to refill. And then, yeah, that's something that is really necessary in the B2B
Yeah, no,
scene.
great that yeah, transactions and transaction history, order history is definitely something that both online and offline or from other channels that you need to have. Maybe other samples as well, or something that's top of your mind.
Yeah, yeah, replacements
Mm-hmm.
of products. If something is not available,
Yeah,
yeah, then have a replacement on your web shop,
yeah.
so they can order a similar product but then a different brand, or just maybe a little bit different size, or packaged different, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But yeah, related products
Yeah, or
is
replacement.
something
Mm-hmm.
order. Yeah.
No, so replacement, that really showing something if the product somebody's searching for is not available. I think you do not see that a lot in B2C, I would
Oh.
say, right? It's really a B2B thing, and I think it's just very very important because yeah, most of the time for B2B, if you're ordering, you're working on a project or you're doing something. Most of the time from for another customer, and you just want to continue, right? You do not want to get blocked. So if this particular tool is not there, or this piece of equipment, or this spare part is not there, you want to have something else, right? And I think,
Exactly.
um,
Yeah, that will fit
of
also.
course, yeah, it
That
should be
yeah,
accurate, yeah,
it
yeah,
should be very accurate.
yeah,
But
and
and then that's also the time when they are going to call. If it's not
mhm,
available,
yeah,
then they are going to call. Hey, I need this
yeah,
right now, and can you check for me what else I can? And if someone on the phone can tell them, yeah, you can order also this product, yeah, then you can add this also in your system.
yeah.
So
So you do not have
they
to call.
know it
It's
exactly.
quicker
Yeah.
and easier. No, exactly, and that is, let's say, more a topic on, I think, product management, product information
Yeah.
management, making
Yeah.
sure that your data is good. You can do that in the ERP to some extent. These
Yep.
ERPs that we are supporting or the different ecosystems have this kind of functionality. But most of the time, or more often, you see product information management systems, or they do it in e-commerce solution to make these relations or to make sure that you have, for example, this information of replacement. Um, and talking about data and product information management, um, maybe small sidestep, but you've seen. I think that's also often a big issue, right? At companies that they want to go online, but then they say, "Oh yeah, but we need a lot of information to share to sell something," right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes also brochures or folders or
Paper catalogs, yeah.
images,
hmm
catalogs with manuals that come along with
hmm
a product, and they all want to store it in the yeah
In a
in the
system,
web shop.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
display it in the web store indeed, and they but need to manage it somewhere, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, and most of the time that can be that's product information management can be done in the ERP. We are leveraging that
Yep.
as well. We are actually for the systems that we are doing integrate with. for example, images, but also files that you can attach to it. We can take that automatically, but if you have your own, let's say, file storage or places that you or product information management systems, yeah, we know that the world is also bigger than only SAP and Dynamics, right? You need to
Yeah.
look what's best fit on the landscape of the customer. So we are supporting that as well, right? And I think in the past we have also yeah, done projects with product information management systems. So maybe that's an advice. Can you so when actually is for you, let's say, the turning point that you say, hey, I'm managing my product information in the ERP, or I'm going to look for a dedicated product information management system? What is often what you advise to your customers?
Almost always if they have multiple languages,
Mm-hmm.
a great range of different products,
Yeah.
item marks or attributes of
Yeah.
just how you want to call it, specifications
Mm-hmm.
that comes along with the product, a lot of videos, images, documentation, then it's better
All
to store
checkboxes
it.
that you say, if you have a couple of
Yeah,
these, then it's definitely
yeah,
worth to
or
go.
multiple stores, and you don't, yeah, with multiple stores and a lot of traffic, then
Mm-hmm.
the performance of the ERP system goes down if you have a lot of information that has to come through. So then
Yeah.
you can better store it somewhere else, and somewhere else is almost always in a product information system.
Yeah. No, great. Yeah. So I think these are a couple of tips, or at least some things you can check for yourself if you're listening to this podcast, saying, "Hey, I'm maybe doubting if I need to propose a product information management system to my company." Then these are the things that you can check if that's applies to you, and say, "Hey." And then there are multiple vendors out there, right? So you can
Exactly. Yeah.
there are cloud vendors. There are the different sizes, different pricing, and also really depends, I think, on what you want to achieve. Is it just managing the product information management for primarily e-commerce, or do you also want to distribute it to other channels like still paper catalog or something else there? Okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
another
yes.
tip that comes along with that is if you have to sell that as IT manager in your company,
Yeah.
then you can also say, yeah, use a return of investment tool to check, hey, the investment I do, because almost always they say, oh, it's expensive, and
Mm-hmm.
what also check what do you have to win with it,
Yeah.
because if a lot of customers email daily, please send me a brochure, please send me a manual, then there's a lot of manual handling,
Mm-hmm.
which costs time
Yeah, it's a
and
lot of hidden cost, I would say,
hidden
right?
costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can, with a return of investment tool, you can added how many times or how many hours people spend on maintaining
Mm-hmm.
that's maintenance of a shop uh, is used, and then you can say, okay, it cost this, but after a year or so
Mm-hmm.
I have my investment back.
Exactly, and I think that's also something you do, right? And that
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
created these calculations, and based on your experience and from other
exactly.
all the projects that you have done. So I think that is
Yeah,
great. So yeah, if you're definitely looking for um, calculating or making your business case work, then yeah, contact Mariette and she calculators for you, right? So, but indeed,
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think it's focusing. If you're already aware of the hidden cost and can tell that story, I think that is already
yeah,
something that is really helpful. And a lot of people are forgetting about it, right? Picking up the phone, sending something manual. Um, that is for such a system, but also for PIM is that maybe a part that you can use. But for integration, like we are supplying, or if you want to make an integration with another tool, but making sure that you focus on it, I think you can still work with, let's say, all the hidden costs to reduce that in, let's say, the order mistakes which are there, trying to avoid all those things, and
yeah,
can make it. I think the business case there is very, very easily to create if you know the trick.
yeah,
All right.
exactly.
So now we're anyway talking about, let's say, about maybe new software acquisition or replatforming. Do you think that IT should have a louder voice when it comes to a platform choice, or when to start with B2B e-commerce in general? So, and if so, what would you suggest to do or advise?
Yeah, yeah, they should really have a louder voice because, yeah, if the integration isn't there, we discussed about it
Mm-hmm.
before. Yeah, then the IT manager suffers from it. He has to solve the problems.
Yeah, spending
If it,
time.
yeah, spending time, but also a check upfront if it fits within the rest of the systems you have. Um, a web shop should is also an application that should fit in your IT landscape.
Yeah,
And yeah, it is a marketing tool, but it is also an application. So um, I think that sales departments, marketing departments, and IT departments should work together to build a good solution for their company. And the
exactly.
solution, yeah,
True.
is more than only a piece of technique. It's also more than a piece of marketing, and
Yeah,
it's also more than just some others.
yeah.
So, yeah,
No, obviously totally agree, and I think it's nice that you explain it in your own words, because I think that is the and it's not only us that's talking about it. I've other top podcasts about B2B e-commerce as well. If you work in a multidisciplinary team, that is your way to success, or to long lasting success in B2B e-commerce, right? We see often
yeah,
B2B e-commerce projects fail if it's just only being led by marketing, or only by sales, or only by IT.
yeah,
It should be the combination, and everybody should, be on the same mission. And if you're working together, then all the aspects are being covered, and you will not step into the trap that you forget about the whole integration part, for example, in these samples that you were
exactly.
mentioning before. So
Yeah,
yeah, if we summarize that a bit for today, because I think we are already almost running out of time. But yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right? So if we
right.
summarize
Yeah,
a little bit the learnings from today, I think um, what really sticks was the fact that you were mentioning that there is a big difference between interfacing and integration, and the different forms of integration, and how and we even went to really big details on the technology level, on and giving a small tip of the iceberg what we are doing with Sana, which makes us different from mainstream e-commerce. um, we will go, that's why this topic, or this podcast is about, right? It's about ERP integration or B2B integration, and that is why we are so super focused on it. And the other thing which is important, I think, that you should not forget this part in, if you are replatforming, or if you are going to start with B2B e-commerce, that you do not forget about the integration part, like you also not forgetting about the design part, right?
exactly.
um,
Yeah.
do not end
No,
up.
no, nobody forgets that.
No, exactly. Nobody's
No.
forgetting the design part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we touched upon a little bit in product information management systems, how that works together with ERP, when to take it or when not to take it. You gave some nice tips there, and some other traps that you can step into. So I think it was very useful for the IT managers that are listening in, and that want to start with B2B e-commerce, or that they know that their company wants to start with B2B e-commerce, or they are looking for another platform because their current platform is mainstream e-commerce, and it's just giving them a lot of pains. So maybe last two questions to end the podcast for this episode is, what is your mission as a B2B e-commerce or ERP consultant? What makes you happy or satisfied?
Yeah, my mission is to optimize the web shop experience for a
Hmm.
smooth shopping experience. So
Yes, for
optimize the chain. from the front
E-
to the end,
exactly, and not stop at the front. That's from end to
exactly,
end,
end to
and that's
end.
and that's actually pretty cool because you started with design, right? So you started at the
Yeah,
front, but now
exactly. Yeah,
nice.
move. Yeah.
And last but not least, what is your favorite B2B e-commerce store and why?
Yeah, that must be Saris. That is because they our customer for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They for over 15 years now have a Sana platform. From the first time I was yeah from the beginning I was involved in the project.
Yeah,
And yeah, Saris has trailers,
yeah.
and they started
Supplying of manufacturing of trailers, right?
yeah, and they started with a web shop with spare parts, and
Mm-hmm.
after a while also had a product configurator, so you can configure your own trailer, and it's yeah, quite cool. So now we are doing a new implementation with Sana for the newest version and also PC. So that's a nice project.
Cool. Yeah, it's great to have that customer already for so long on board. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe another candidate for an interview and next time.
yeah.
But you were involved there heavily as well. But thank you very very much, Mariette, for sharing all your knowledge and all the experience you have in yeah, let's say implementing and running these, yeah, let's say hundreds of B2B e-commerce stores. And yeah, once again, if you like this podcast or if you like the content that we are sharing, please give it a like or a rating so that the peers can follow it or find it as well. Thank you very much. See you next time and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.